We're live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India News, India's Voice to the World. I'm Lipakshi Khurana. Coming up in the next hour. Trump imposes travel ban on nationals from 12 countries, including Afghanistan. White House claims a move to protect Americans from dangerous foreign actors. Amid an escalating row with academic institutions, Trump signs a proclamation to restrict foreign student visas at Harvard University. U.S. threatens Columbia University's accreditation, citing anti-Semitism concerns. U.S. President Trump calls Russian President Putin, hints of no immediate peace between Russia and Ukraine, says Putin plans retaliation for Ukraine's stunning drone attack. The all-party delegations are returning home after concluding highly productive visits to key partner countries, successfully showcase India's continued fight against terrorism. In sports, Novak Djokovic downs Alexander Zverev to set up French Open semi-final against top seed Jannik Sinner. And on to the details now. U.S. President Donald Trump has signed a proclamation banning travel to the U.S. from nationals of 12 countries, citing national security risks, according to the White House. The ban targets nationals of Afghanistan, Myanmar, Chad, Republic of the Congo, Equatorial Guinea, Eritrea, Haiti, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Sudan and Yemen. The entry of people from 7 other countries, Burundi, Cuba, Laos, Sierra Leone, Togo, Turkmenistan and Venezuela, will also be partially restricted. The proclamation is effective on June 9, 2025 at 0401 GMT. The proclamation is the second time Trump has ordered a ban on travel from certain countries. He signed a similar order in 2017 during his first administration. Trump said the list could be revised and new countries could be added. Trump said the countries subject to the most severe restrictions were determined to harbor a large-scale presence of terrorists, fail to cooperate on visa security and have an inability to verify travelers' identities.
The recent terror attack in Boulder, Colorado, has underscored the extreme dangers posed to our country by the entry of foreign nationals who are not properly vetted, as well as those who come here as temporary visitors and overstay their visas. We don't want them. Very simply, we cannot have open migration from any country where we cannot safely and reliably vet and screen those who seek to enter the United States. But we will not allow people to enter our country who wish to do us harm, and nothing will stop us from keeping America safe.
While U.S. President Donald Trump has announced a ban on visas for new foreign students at Harvard University, citing concerns about the university's handling of certain issues. This move is part of his administration's broader crackdown on higher education institutions. Trump stated that restricting the entry of foreign nationals seeking to study at Harvard University or participate in its exchange visitor program is necessary. This isn't the first time Trump's administration has tried to implement such a ban. A similar order was blocked by a court in May, with Harvard filing a lawsuit claiming the order would cause serious and lasting harm. And similarly, the U.S. government has threatened to strip Columbia University also of its accreditation due to alleged anti-Semitism on the campus, which could result in the loss of federal funding and prestige. The Department of Education claims Columbia University failed to protect Jewish students from harassment, violating Title VI protections, a national law that prohibits recipients of federal funding from discriminating on the basis of race, color, or national origin. Early in March, the Trump administration put $400 million of Columbia's funding under review, prompting the university to implement new policies to address anti-Semitism concerns. Though Columbia University says it's committed to combating anti-Semitism and has been working with the federal government to address these issues. Well, U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin spoke on the phone on Wednesday about Ukraine's drone attack on Russian airfields over the weekend and the Iranian nuclear issue. After the call, Donald Trump posted on Truth Social and shared more details about the conversation. Trump noted that during the 75-minute phone call, Putin stated that Russia will respond to Ukraine's attack on several Russian airports. Trump said the two leaders talked about the Ukraine conflict and other global matters. Trump said Putin warned him that he would seek revenge for Ukraine's drone attack on Moscow's bomber fleet, adding that the Russian leader was not ready for any immediate peace. Trump stated that the two sides also discussed the Iranian nuclear issue and told Putin that Iran cannot have nuclear weapons. This was the second phone call between Trump and Putin since May 19th. Though both Russia and Ukraine have resumed talks in recent weeks, a ceasefire still appears distant. Well, Pope Leo and Russian President Vladimir Putin had their first phone call discussing the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. Pope Leo urged Russia to take steps towards peace, emphasizing dialogue and humanitarian aid. Putin expressed gratitude for the Pope's willingness to help settle the crisis. Putin claimed Ukraine is intent on escalating the conflict, citing sabotage against Russian civilian infrastructure, while the Vatican highlighted the need for aid and prisoner exchanges. Pope Leo previously offered to host Russia-Ukraine negotiations at the Vatican, but Russian officials have expressed skepticism about the Vatican's suitability for peace talks. And Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's chief of staff, Andriy Yermak, met U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio in Washington, D.C. The meetings came on the same day that Russian President Vladimir Putin spoke to U.S. President Donald Trump. The conflict in Ukraine is intensifying after nearly 4 months of cajoling and threats to both Moscow and Kyiv from Trump, who says he wants peace after more than 3 years of the deadliest conflict in Europe since World War II.
Definitely, again, 3 years. It's a long period of time. But believe that Ukrainian nation, Ukraine, we are living, we are continuing to fighting. What happened in the last weekend demonstrated that we are strong enough, we are able to achieve just and lasting peace. We account very much for continuous support of our partners, first of all of United States. And I think the end of this war, the just and lasting peace, it's a very important, not just for Ukraine, because we defend not just our freedom and independence. We defend Europe, we defend free world in our continent, and this is a very important to not lose after these more than 3 years, the faith that Ukraine able to win this war.
Well, the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un vowed to unconditionally support Russia in all areas, including in its conflict in Ukraine. Meeting top Russian security officials Sergei Shoigu on Wednesday, Kim expressed expectation and conviction that Russia would, as ever, surely win victory in the sacred cause of justice. Shoigu also thanked Kim for sending North Korean troops to fight alongside Russian forces trying to retake the Kursk region from Ukrainian control. The two sides agreed to continue to dynamically expand relations. Russia and North Korea signed a sweeping military deal last year, including a mutual defense clause during a rare visit by Russian leader Vladimir Putin to the nuclear-armed North. Both sides said they wanted to expand and develop Russia and North Korea ties into the powerful and comprehensive relations of strategic partnership. Shoigu also met with North Korean military official Park Jong-chon. Wednesday's visit is Shoigu's second to Pyongyang in less than 3 months. Well, the White House strongly criticized a forecast that Donald Trump's sweeping policy bill could drastically increase the national deficit, while Elon Musk renewed his attacks on the president's agenda on Wednesday. The nonpartisan CBO projects Trump's main bill would increase the U.S. deficit by $2.4 trillion by 2034. Stephen Miller, Trump's deputy chief of staff, rejected the CBO's report as biased and said the projection does not reflect reality. Trump's key bill for a second term faces a congressional opposition. It plans to extend 2017 tax cuts by increasing debt and reducing support for low-income Americans. Meanwhile, tech magnate Elon Musk reiterated his disapproval, having previously branded the bill as a disgusting abomination. The bill passed the House but faces tough opposition in the Senate, where talks are intensifying. Trump wants a Senate vote by 4th of July. And Canada has prepared possible reprisals while the European Union reported progress in trade talks on Wednesday as new U.S. metal tariffs triggered more disruption in the global economy and added urgency to negotiations with Washington. Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney said Canada is prepared to strike back against the United States if talks with Washington to remove Trump's tariffs did not succeed. Carney told the House of Commons, "We are in intensive negotiations with the Americans and in parallel preparing reprisals if those negotiations do not succeed." Canada's Labour Union Unifor called for retaliatory tariffs, while Ontario Premier Doug Ford urged Carney not to sit back and let President Trump steamroll. Also, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum on Wednesday said that Mexico will announce measures next week if there is no agreement reached with the United States on the steel and aluminium tariffs. She also called the U.S. announcement to raise the metal tariffs to 50% from the 25% introduced in March, citing the free trade agreement Mexico and Canada share with the United States. On June 3rd, Donald Trump signed an executive proclamation to activate tariffs, which was set to take effect on June 4th. The Trump administration is urging countries to submit their best offers to avoid additional import tariffs set to take effect from early July.
Si no hay un acuerdo, pues ya nosotros estaríamos anunciando la próxima semana. Porque nuestra responsabilidad, primero, es proteger el empleo a las y los trabajadores mexicanos. Y segundo, pues a la industria del acero. En nuestro caso importamos más acero. Entonces es injusto. Segundo, desde nuestra perspectiva no tiene sustento legal, porque hay un tratado comercial. Se está viendo por razones de seguridad nacional de Estados Unidos.
While Cuban students called for a boycott of classes over new mobile internet tariffs that include steep fees for those who exceed their monthly data limits. Cubans say the tariff hikes implemented by state telecoms company Etexa on May 30th will leave them with only a few gigabytes of data per month, as purchasing additional data will be prohibitively expensive. Students have been particularly angered by the new pricing system, under which top-ups must be paid in hard-to-come-by dollars or at a steep increment in Cuban pesos. On Tuesday evening, student leaders at the University of Havana's Mathematics and Informatics faculty called for a boycott of classes in order to try to force Etexa to annul the tariff hikes. Well, hundreds of Venezuelans deported from the United States to El Salvador under an 18th century wartime law must be given the chance to challenge their detentions, and the Trump administration must facilitate the legal challenges. U.S. District Judge James Boasberg stopped short of expressly ordering the Trump administration to bring the hundreds of Venezuelan migrants currently being held in a mega prison in El Salvador back to the United States. The judge gave the Trump administration 1 week to detail how it would facilitate the deportees' filing of legal challenges. In his ruling, Boasberg wrote that the individuals were deported without adequate notice or the right to contest their removals. The Venezuelans were deported in March after President Donald Trump invoked the 1798 Alien Enemies Act to swiftly deport alleged members of the Tren de Aragua gang without going through normal immigration procedures. And a judge in El Salvador ordered the provisional detention of prominent lawyer Ruth Lopez. Lopez was arrested by Salvadoran authorities last month over allegations of embezzlement during her time as a state official. The Attorney General's office linked Lopez to a case against the former president of El Salvador's electoral tribunal, Eugenio Chicas, who was detained in February over accusations of illicit enrichment. Cristosal has sharply criticized President Nayib Bukele's hardline security policies and warned of possible irregular use of public funds by his administration. And still to come, DD India News App. US vetoes UN resolution demanding immediate unconditional ceasefire in Gaza. Khamenei rejects US demand to end uranium enrichment, stalling nuclear deal talks. An alarming funding gap threatens 2030 ocean protection goals, the report warns ahead of UN summit.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy, always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lipakshi Kuran, and moving on, the United States vetoed a UN Security Council demand on Wednesday for an immediate, unconditional and permanent ceasefire between Israel and Hamas in Gaza and unhindered aid access across the enclave. The text was put forward by 10 countries on the 15-member council. Other than US, the remaining 14 council members voted in favor of the draft resolution. Israel has rejected calls for an unconditional or permanent ceasefire, saying Hamas cannot stay in Gaza. It has renewed its military offensive in Gaza, also seeking to free hostages held by Hamas since ending a 2-month ceasefire in March. Acting U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Dorothy Shea, told the Council before the vote that this resolution would undermine diplomatic efforts to reach a ceasefire that reflects the realities on the ground and embodies Hamas.
The United States has been clear. We would not support any measure that fails to condemn Hamas and does not call for Hamas to disarm and leave Gaza. In recent months, Hamas has rejected numerous ceasefire proposals, including one over the weekend, that would provide a pathway to end this conflict and release the remaining 58 hostages. We cannot allow the Security Council to reward Hamas's intransigence. After all, it was Hamas who started this brutal conflict on October 7th, 2023, when Hamas perpetrated the worst massacre of Jews since the Holocaust. Hamas has sustained it ever since in a manner that threatens Israel's security and prolongs Palestinian anguish. It is Hamas that continues to threaten Israelis and puts Palestinian civilians in Gaza in harm's way every day, using them as human shields. They have brutally suppressed those brave enough to challenge its despotic rule. It is inexplicable that many members of this council still refuse to acknowledge that Hamas could end this conflict tomorrow by surrendering and laying down its arms. It is unconscionable that the UN still has not labeled and sanctioned Hamas as a terrorist organization.
Well, Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei said on Wednesday Tehran will not abandon its uranium enrichment, rejecting a key U.S. demand aimed at resolving a decades-long nuclear dispute. The U.S. proposal for a new nuclear deal was presented to Iran on May 31st by Oman, which has mediated talks between Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi and President Donald Trump's Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff. After 5 rounds of talks, several hard-to-bridge issues remain, including Iran's insistence on maintaining uranium enrichment on its soil and Tehran's refusal to ship abroad its entire existing stockpile of highly enriched uranium. Tehran says it wants to master nuclear technology for peaceful purposes and has long denied accusations by Western powers that it is seeking to develop nuclear weapons. And U.S. federal prosecutors have accused 2 Chinese nationals of smuggling a dangerous biological pathogen that had the potential to be used as an agricultural terrorism weapon into the United States for research. The U.S. Department of Justice on Tuesday identified the pathogen as Fusarium graminearum, a fungus it said was classified in scientific literature as a potential agro-terrorism weapon. In a statement, it said that the fungus causes head blight in some crops and is responsible for billions of dollars in economic losses globally each year. U.S. authorities say Yongyong Liu brought the fungus during a visit to his girlfriend in July 2024 to research it at her University of Michigan lab. FBI evidence shows the couple discussed sending biological materials and lab research before Liu arrived. Well, a U.S. appeals court in Seattle is reviewing the constitutionality of President Donald Trump's executive order to restrict automatic birthright citizenship. It's the first time a federal appeal court has heard such a case. Trump signed the order on January 20th upon returning to office. It instructs federal agencies not to recognize U.S. citizenship for children born in the U.S. unless at least one parent is a U.S. citizen or green card holder. Critics say it violates the 14th Amendment, which grants citizenship to nearly all born in the U.S. Lower courts had blocked the order, while the Supreme Court is also reviewing whether judges can issue nationwide blocks. If enforced, over 150,000 babies could lose U.S. citizenship each year.
We're also talking about upending the lives and identities of citizens of this country who, through a stroke of a pen from the president, would no longer be citizens in the United States, and the absurdity and harm that would come from that. And so I'm really confident moving forward that this court and ultimately the Supreme Court will rule in the state's favors.
Well, U.S. President Donald Trump ordered an investigation into what Republicans claim was a conspiracy to cover up Joe Biden's declining cognitive health during his time in the White House. The move is the latest in a long-running campaign by Trump to discredit his predecessor, which has been joined by Republican Party politicians and their cheerleaders in the conservative media. But it also comes as a growing chorus of Democrats begin to acknowledge the former president appeared to have been slipping in recent years. Trump's claims of a cover-up were also boosted by news that Biden is suffering from an aggressive prostate cancer, with some voices on his right insisting without evidence the diagnosis must have been known some time ago to those close to the former president. And Karine Jean-Pierre, former President Joe Biden's press secretary at the White House from 2022 until 2025, has left the Democratic Party and is now an independent. Jean-Pierre succeeded Jen Psaki as the public face of the Biden administration in May 2022, becoming the first black and openly gay person to serve in the role. In her capacity answering press questions, she stood up for U.S. policy on major issues such as the conflict in Ukraine and the conflict between Israel and Hamas, with her responses seen around the world. Jean-Pierre had previously worked on Biden's 2020 presidential campaign in President Barack Obama's White House and was Chief Public Affairs Officer. Well, the U.S. Senate Commerce Committee will hold a June 11th hearing on President Donald Trump's nomination of Republic Airways CEO Brian Bedford to head the Federal Aviation Administration. Bedford, a pilot and industry veteran of more than 30 years, previously headed two other carriers and oversaw a significant expansion of Republic Airways. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy has asked Congress for tens of billions of dollars to modernize the aging U.S. air traffic control system to address airport congestion, flight delays, and a shortage of 3,500 certified controllers. The FAA's air traffic control network's woes have been years in the making, but a rush of high-profile mishaps, near misses, and a catastrophic crash in January involving an American Airlines regional jet and an Army helicopter killed 67 and prompted new calls for action. Well, hundreds of elderly Argentinians gathered outside Congress on Wednesday to protest as lawmakers debated a bill aimed at increasing retirement benefits amid growing frustration over the economic hardships faced by the pensioners. Retirees have voiced opposition to President Javier Milei's austerity policies, which they say have severely reduced their purchasing power and limited their access to medications and health care services. The demonstrators, holding signs and banners, assembled behind security barriers set up around the Buenos Aires Legislative Building. Meanwhile, inside Congress, lawmakers debated boosting retirement benefits and declaring a disability services emergency to secure funding. The protest remained peaceful, with police maintaining a secure perimeter around the Congress. And Bolivia's armed forces have denied allegations of planning a coup against the government amid escalating nationwide unrest fueled by fuel shortage crisis and rising inflation. The controversy comes as former President Evo Morales pushes for his candidacy in the August elections despite a constitutional ban. Notably, June 26th marks the anniversary of a failed coup attempt led by former military commander, which was thwarted and resulted in the arrest of alleged perpetrators. In response to the fuel shortage, public transport drivers in La Paz have organized a march demanding a stable supply to resume operations. Meanwhile, Morales supporters in Cochabamba have blocked roads in protest against the ban on his candidacy. And moving on, Brazil's Agriculture Minister Carlos Feveiro stated there were strong signs that the world's largest chicken exporter has successfully contained the bird flu outbreak reported at a commercial chicken farm in mid-May. The country has processed over 4,000 tests and is currently investigating 9 suspected bird flu cases nationwide. Feveiro said some trade partners may ease restrictions before the 28-day observation period ends as long as no commercial farm outbreaks occur. Countries including China, South Korea and the European Union were in talks with Brazil to ease their bans. Chicken prices in Brazil dropped about 7%, which Feveiro said was normal. About 75% of Brazil's chicken production is used for domestic consumption. It has so far confirmed 171 outbreaks of bird flu in the last 2 years, most of which were found in wild birds. Well, buildings have been ravaged by flames in Saskatchewan as wildfires sweeping across Western Canada continue to displace many and destroy property. The blazes, fueled by hot temperatures, dry conditions and high winds, have scorched vast areas of forest and penetrated deep into several northern communities. La Ronge, a town known for its rich history and gateway to the north, has become one of the hardest hit areas. Officials have confirmed that more than 31,000 residents across West Canada and neighboring provinces have been forced to evacuate since the fires intensified late last week. Well, the world is falling short on its marine conservation goals, with less than 10% of the needed funds being spent in protecting oceans. Despite agreeing to designate 30% of the world's oceans as protected areas by 2030, currently only 8.4% are covered. Moreover, according to a new report by environmental groups, some $15.8 billion is needed every year to achieve the 30 into 30 target, but only $1.2 billion is currently being spent. The report is called the funding gap alarming that must be redressed at the UN Ocean Conference that will kick off from June 9th in France. Less than 3% of all marine conservation areas globally are considered truly protected. Some forbid all forms of fishing while others place no rules. As per report, redirecting subsidies from harmful activities could also help fill the funding gap. Well, the Center for Social Innovation and Foreign Policy in Nepal organized a seminar on terrorism in South Asia and its implications for Nepal, where experts discussed the persistent threat of terrorism in South Asia with focus on Nepal's vulnerabilities and the need for effective countermeasures. The seminar underscored Nepal's need to reassess its neutrality-based foreign policy, invest in evidence-based counter-terrorism capacity and elevate national conversations on security beyond the government to include academia and civil society. And the 5th edition of the Himalayan Travel Mart, a 3-day-long international tourism fair that started on the 3rd of June, aims at promoting Nepal's tourism, kicked off in Kathmandu. The event attended by over 700 representatives, including more than 100 international delegates from 30 countries. The event opened with a conference titled Mountain, Milestone and Momentum. HTM 2025 is instrumental in exploring and promoting Nepal's tourism destinations internationally. Himalayan Travel Mart acts as a platform for international business-to-business interaction and sharing of the industry's best practices. Himalayan Travel Mart emphasizes on Nepal's commitment to sustainable tourism and infrastructure development. And still to come on DT India News. India to host 4th India Central Asia Dialogue in New Delhi to boost regional cooperation and connectivity. India elected a UN Economic and Social Council for 2026-28 term, pledges continued commitment to global development. And we'll give you all the update from the Northeast regarding the flood situation there. Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Chikuran, and time now for a quick recap of the headlines. Trump imposes travel ban on nationals from 12 countries, including Afghanistan. White House claims the move to protect Americans from dangerous foreign actors. Amid an escalating row with academic institutions, Trump signs a proclamation to restrict foreign student visas at Harvard University. U.S. threatens Columbia University's accreditation, citing anti-Semitism concerns. U.S. President Trump calls Russian President Putin, hints of no immediate peace between Russia and Ukraine, says Putin plans retaliation for Ukraine's stunning drone attack. The all-party delegations are returning home after concluding highly productive visits to key partner countries, successfully showcase India's continued fight against terrorism. And in sports, Novak Djokovic downs Alexander Zverev to set up French Open semi-final against top seed Jannik Sinner. India's global outreach and Operation Sindoor reached its final leg. While 5 out of 7 all-party delegations returned to India, the other 2 delegations are engaged in high-level discussions to strengthen India's fight against terrorism. In the last leg of its visit, the all-party delegation, led by Member of Indian Parliament Dr. Shashi Tharoor, met bipartisan co-chairs of India Caucus in the House of Representatives, Ro Khanna and Rich McCormick, and vice co-chairs Andy Barr and Mark Vesey in Washington, D.C. The delegation briefed the caucus members on the cross-border terrorism faced by India and India's strong and resolute stance in the fight against terror. The congressmen expressed unequivocal and bipartisan condemnation for the terror attack in Pahalgam. They expressed support for India's right to respond to terrorism in the spirit of zero tolerance against terrorism. The caucus members also hailed the strong strategic partnership between India and USA. Well, the all-party parliamentary delegation also held candid and fruitful exchange with House Foreign Affairs Committee leadership. The delegation briefed the committee members on the success of Operation Sindoor in defining a new normal in India's fight against cross-border terrorism. The committee leadership condemned the Pahalgam attack unequivocally. While the delegation was warmly received at the United States Capitol by a bipartisan group of senior U.S. senators, including leading members from the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, Senate Intelligence Committee, and the Senate India Caucus. The parliamentary delegation discussed the success of Operation Sindoor, laid out details of Pakistan-sponsored cross-border terrorism, and outlined India's firm resolve to appropriately deal with any such future incidents. Well, members of Indian parliamentary delegation also had a constructive meeting with the chairwoman of the House Republican Conference, Lisa McLean. The Indian delegation briefed the congressman about India's stance on Pakistan-backed terrorism following the dastardly attack in Pahalgam. Both sides agreed on the need for both democracies and their parliamentarians to work together to further the interest of their people and their economies. And another all-party Indian parliamentary delegation led by Member of Indian Parliament Ravi Shankar Prasad visited the European Parliament in Brussels, where it engaged with members of the European Parliament, including from the Delegation for Relations with India, the Committee on Foreign Affairs and the Committee on Security and Defence. The delegation briefed members of the European Parliament in detail about the cross-border terrorism directed against India, including the recent heinous attack in Pahalgam, as well as about Operation Sindoor and India's policy of zero tolerance towards terrorism. The discussions focused on enhancing India-EU strategic cooperation, particularly in the area of counter-terrorism. Discussions also focused on broader India-EU ties, high-level engagements and the deepening parliamentary exchanges. MEPs condemned the brutal terrorist attack in Pahalgam and India's right to defend itself and bring to justice the perpetrators. And the all-party delegation led by Member of Indian Parliament Supriya Sule returned on New Delhi on Wednesday. The delegation, comprising MPs from across parties, interacted with top leaders, think tanks and opinion makers in Qatar, South Africa, Ethiopia and Egypt, highlighting India's unified stand against terrorism and its call for global cooperation in tackling the threat. Well, India to host the fourth meeting of the India-Central Asia Dialogue in New Delhi on June 6th. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar will host the foreign ministers of the Republic of Kazakhstan, the Kyrgyz Republic, the Republic of Tajikistan, Turkmenistan and the Republic of Uzbekistan. The ministers will discuss further strengthening of relations between India and Central Asian countries, with particular focus on trade, connectivity, technology and development cooperation. They will also share perspectives on challenges to regional security and other regional and global issues of mutual interest. The foreign ministers will also participate in the India-Central Asia Business Council meeting being held on 5th June by MEA in collaboration with FICCI. The India-Central Asia Dialogue is a manifestation of mutual interest on the part of India and the Central Asian countries to forge even closer, wider and stronger partnership in a spirit of friendship, trust and mutual understanding. And India elected to the Economic and Social Council of the United Nations for the period from 2026 to 28. The Council is at the heart of the UN's mechanism to advance the three dimensions of sustainable development: economic, social and environmental. The Economic and Social Council of the United Nations is considered a key organ that plays an important role in recommending policies related to economic and social issues. Applauding India's efforts at UN, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar on X wrote, and I quote, "India was elected to the Economic and Social Council for the term 2026 to 28. We thank member states for their overwhelming support and reposing their trust in us, appreciate the efforts of India at the United Nations. India remains committed to championing development issues and keep working to strengthen the ECOSOC," unquote. And India's Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal commenced his two-day visit to Italy on Wednesday following the conclusion of his engagements in France focused on advancing economic cooperation between the two countries. Ahead of his official engagements, the India Commerce Minister met with Italian businessmen in Milan. Leading Italian companies have announced significant investment plans for India following a strategic meeting with Union Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal in Milan, signaling strengthened economic ties between the two nations. The meeting brought together top executives from key Italian industrial sectors, including commercial, refrigeration, aerospace and defense and technical gases, all expressing a strong commitment to expanding their operation in India's rapidly growing market. Prime Minister Narendra Modi chaired a meeting of Council of Ministers on Wednesday, the first after Operation Sindoor and days before completion of his first year in his third term in office. In each of these meetings, different government departments make detailed presentations about schemes, programs and their progress. Well, moving on, the flood situation in India's northeastern Assam has shown significant improvement, with floodwaters receding in many areas. However, the death toll has risen to 14 and over 600,000 people still remain affected across 21 districts, with Sribhumi being the worst hit district, affected over 200,000 people. Relief efforts are underway as 405 relief camps and centers have been set up, with over 41,000 flood victims taking shelter in 190 relief camps. Over 14,000 hectares of crop area remain affected and more than 500,000 animals are facing the brunt of the flood waters. Well, also, the Indian Meteorological Department has issued yellow alerts for all northeastern states, predicting moderate rainfall for the next 7 days, with heavy rainfall likely at isolated places in Assam, Meghalaya, Mizoram, Nagaland, Manipur and Tripura. Meanwhile, in another northeastern state of Sikkim, relief and rescue work is underway after heavy rains and landslides halted the efforts on Wednesday. The rescue efforts got resumed on Thursday morning as helicopters have left from Phokyang Airport in Sikkim to pick up the stranded people. And for more, we have Subina Roy joining us from Dibrugarh and Manas Pratim Sarma joins us from Gangtok, Sikkim on the flood situation there. Well, Subina, what challenges are authorities facing there in reaching and providing aid to the worst affected areas like Sribhumi, especially with the threat of more rainfall in the coming days? How is the present situation?
Yeah, a very good morning, Lepakshi. Like as you had mentioned about the Barak Valley, which comprises of Sribhumi, Hailakandi, Kachar, Karbi Anglong. These are the districts which are largely on a hilly terrain, which means if there are any landslides, heavy rainfalls, it causes difficulty in communication. The roads, many of the roads have been disrupted. Many of the national highways in the past few days have been disrupted due to this devastating rains and due to landslides in the hilly areas. Now, coming to the city area in Sribhumi and Silchar, there have been waterlogging issues due to the embankment breaches that have been reported at Barak River. Because there are a few rivers in the Barak Valley, like Katakhal, Barak, which is flowing above danger level, and due to which the water levels have been rising. And that's why maximum number of people, if you go by the district-wise report, maximum people from Kachar, Sribhumi are the ones who are flood affected. Day before yesterday, the CM had visited the Kachar area, and most of the people were residing in relief camps. Like now, talking about the relief camps, yesterday around 405 relief camps were set up, where in 190 relief camps, over 41,000 people were staying, and 215 relief distributions have been set up across the state yesterday, where 1.1 lakh people have been receiving the aid. However, due to the waterlogging issues, the SDRF teams and the rescue teams face difficulty in providing the emergency relief.
Though the difficulties are being faced, but the relief operation is going on in full swing. My second question to you, Manas, what is the current status of the stranded individuals in North Sikkim, if you talk about, and how many people have been rescued since the helicopter operations we heard resumed this morning?
Yeah, good morning. As we are talking, the first sortie is supposed to land at Pakyong Greenfield Airport. And since this morning, two Indian Air Force chopper has been pressed into services. NDRF teams are on their way to rescue the stranded people. I think by any moment, around 20 to 25 people, stranded tourists are going to land at Pakyong Airport. From Pakyong, they will be taken to Gangtok, and from Gangtok, they will go to their destination. Precisely, if we want to summarize the situation, yesterday from Lachen, they were taken to Chaten, around 110 stranded tourists. They have been taken to Chaten. There is a helipad at Chaten, and they were staying at hotels and in around army cantonment. And if everything goes according to plan, by today afternoon, the evacuation mission is likely to be completed.
All right.
But all depends on the weather. Yes.
All right. Thank you so much, Manas and Subina, for all that update from there. And moving on, today we are observing World Environment Day with theme and focus on ending global plastic pollution. The day unites communities to promote environmental protection and encourages a sustainable future. DD India's Tapas Bhattacharya reports for more.
For decades, plastic pollution has spread across our planet, damaging ecosystems, threatening wildlife, and impacting human health. But this World Environment Day, there is hope. The theme for the World Environment Day 2025 is ending global plastic pollution.
World Environment Day is a special moment for all of us. The garment and textile industry is one of the largest in the world. It provides jobs to millions, especially in Asia and India. But it also creates a large environment footprint and textile waste, old cloth, fabric scrap and unused material, which can harm the environment if not managed properly. The good news is that change is already happening in different pockets, and more and more companies are now using eco-friendly fabric, designing clothes that last longer, and encouraging people to recycle and reuse.
Led by the United Nations Environment Programme, the world is coming together to beat the plastic pollution. Plastic pollution fuels the triple planetary crisis: climate change, biodiversity loss, pollution and waste. Each year, 11 million tons of plastic leak into our waters that cost up to $600 billion in damage. But there is a wind of change. Across India, industries are stepping up, rethinking businesses with sustainability at the core.
I would say right from the water generation, what we do, we generate water. In our resort in Delhi, it's called as Doordarshan. We generate the water which we serve to the guests from the moisture in the air through the solar panels. Right, so that means we avoid the plastic bottles. We obviously have the glass bottles, and we refill the glass bottles, which saves again a lot of chemical, a lot of detergents, a lot of other water also is saved from there onwards. We make sure the water is 100% recycled in our hotels and resorts. And we also make sure that most, I would say at least 95% of the paper is all eradicated from our hotels and resorts.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi's heartfelt Ek Ped Maa Ke Naam, One Tree for Mother initiative went global. A sapling planted with love became the symbol of environmental consciousness and maternal tribute. This World Environment Day, let's act, not just observe. Refuse plastic, rethink choices and restore our planet. This World Environment Day, be part of the change. With camera person Vishwabandhu and Monty, this is Tapas Bhattacharya for DD India from Delhi.
Well, on the occasion of World Environment Day, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will lead a special tree plantation initiative at Bhagwan Mahavir Vanasthali Park in New Delhi, reaffirming India's commitment to environmental stewardship and green mobility. Prime Minister will plant a banyan sapling under the Ek Ped Maa Ke Naam initiative. This will be part of the Aravali Green Wall project, which aims to reforest the 700-kilometer Aravali range. Prime Minister will also flag off 200 electric buses under Delhi government's Sustainable Transport Initiative, promoting clean urban mobility and symbolizing the nation's collective responsibility towards ecological balance. And on the World Environment Day, Prime Minister shared a video on social media calling for deepening efforts towards protecting our planet and overcoming the challenges. He also complimented all those working at the grassroots to make our environment greener and better. Well, India added 2 more wetlands, Kichin in Palodi and Menar in Udaipur, to the Ramsar list of wetlands of international importance. With these additions, India's total count of Ramsar sites now stands at 91. India has the highest number of such wetlands in Asia. Union Cabinet Minister for Environment, Forest and Climate Change, Bhupendra Yadav, announced the news on X. He wrote, and I quote, India has 2 new entrants to the list of wetlands of international importance. The latest to join the list of Ramsar sites in India are Kichan in Falodi, Rajasthan, Minar in Udaipur, Rajasthan. This addition takes our tally to 91. The achievement is yet another testament to the fact that PM Narendra Modi's focus on environmental conservation is successfully helping India build a greener tomorrow. Congratulations, India, especially the people of Rajasthan. Prime Minister Modi also welcomed the news, describing it as a sign of India's strides in environmental conservation, powered by public participation and happening with great vigor. Well, wetlands are areas where water covers the soil or is present either seasonally or throughout the year. These ecosystems are vital for maintaining biodiversity, mitigating floods and filtering pollutants. They serve as habitats for a rich variety of plant and animal species, especially birds, fish and amphibians, and are crucial to the health of the planet. And on the World Environment Day 2025, renowned Indian sand artist Sudarshan Patnaik unveiled a striking art installation titled Beat Plastic Pollution at the iconic Puri beach in Odisha. The sand art was made with hundreds of discarded plastic bottles meticulously arranged to deliver a compelling visual message, highlighting the urgent global crisis of plastic pollution. The art spread the message of cleanliness not only to raise awareness but also to galvanize the community, tourists and policymakers into taking concrete action to reduce plastic usage. And you're watching DD India News Hour. Time now for some sports news. Let's move on to updates from the ongoing French Open Grand Slam. 3-time champion Novak Djokovic kept up his quest for a record-breaking 25th Grand Slam title. The 38-year-old battled fast third seed Alexander Zverev 4-6, 6-3, 6-2, 6-4 to set up a French Open semi-final against top seed Jannik Sinner. Early on Wednesday, Sinner booked a spot in the first 4 with a straight sets win over Kazakh Alexander Bublik 6-1, 7-5, 6-0 and become the first Italian man to reach 6 Grand Slam semi-finals. In women's singles, Lois Boysen sent the Roland Garros faithful into a state of euphoria. The world number 361 conjured the unimaginable as she toppled Russian wonderkid Mira Andreeva 7-6, 6-3 to reach the final Open semi-finals. Meanwhile, Coco Gauff secured a spot in the semi-finals with a victory against fellow American Madison Keys. Both players would like to forget the game as they broke the 700 unforced error barrier. Gauff will face Lois Boysen for a place in the finale. And Cristiano Ronaldo scored the winner as Portugal fought back to beat Germany 2-1 on Wednesday and reached the UEFA Nation League final. Germany took the lead in the 48th minute as Florian Wirtz headed in the box, following a pinpoint lob passed from Joshua Kimmich. However, Portugal turned the match around for first equalizing through substitute Francisco Conceição in the 63rd minute before Ronaldo tapped in 5 minutes later to send the visitors into the finale. Spain and France will clash in the other semi-final on Thursday to decide who will face Portugal in the decider on Sunday. Well, a Tri-Services Circumnavigation Sailing Expedition team comprising 12 women officers returned back to India on Wednesday after completing a groundbreaking international voyage to Seychelles. The historic expedition was launched on 7th of April from Mumbai, marking the first ever international open sea sailing commission by an all-women team from the Indian Armed Forces. They were aboard the indigenously built Indian Armed Services vessel Triveni. The Tri-Services Sailing Expedition team returned home on June 4th after completing a groundbreaking 1,800 nautical mile international voyage to Seychelles. All right, that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Lipakshi Khurana from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.